All right. Hello and welcome. I'm Otis Landerholm. I'm the founding attorney here at Landerholm Immigration A.P.C, where we fight for your American dream. And today I'm going to be talking about the latest asylum regulation change. All right. And this is specifically regarding the 2020 asylum regulation change regarding criminal bars to asylum eligibility. And so to discuss that fully, I'm going to share my screen here, and I've got a little presentation that I'm going to walk you through. And I'm going to do this slideshow from the beginning. I'm going to swap here, and I'll make my talking head a little bit bigger there. All right, so here we are, 2020 changes to the asylum regulations regarding crimes. It's November 2nd of 2020. All of this is my synopsis of the changes. I have gone through the changes that are in the regulations, but this is not verbatim what those changes are. These are my, it's basically my highlighting and my thinking through each of the changes that are in the regulations. If you want to see the original, I can show you where that is. It's basically, it's in the Federal Register. But anyway, I can show you this. What I call this is 8 new bars and 6 definition changes. All right. So by 8 new bars, right, there's 8 new reasons why the government will say you're not eligible for asylum. That's what a bar is. It says, sorry, you're not eligible for asylum because you've triggered one of these 8 things. And then there's some definition changes that are that need to be discussed. And at the end, I'll just share a little bit of my own conclusion. All right. So some of this gets pretty specific. And so I'm going to try to go fast through it, but it's also kind of dense. So stay with me. All right. The 8 new bars. The first bar is for immigrants, or the regulations refer to them as quote unquote aliens. All right. Who have been convicted of illegal entry, alien smuggling, or alien harboring. These folks are now going to be barred from applying for asylum. The second bar is for aliens or foreign nationals who have been convicted of an offense where there is reason to believe that it was, quote, in support, promotion, or furtherance of the activity of a criminal street gang. So anybody that's been involved with that will now be barred from seeking asylum. The third, aliens convicted of a DUI or really any offense involving alcohol or drugs while in the operation of a motor vehicle in which the impaired driving was a cause of serious bodily injury or death. Anybody in that situation, even if it's one single offense, will not be eligible for asylum. Number 4, aliens convicted of, quote, a second or a subsequent offense for driving while intoxicated or impaired without regard to whether it's a misdemeanor or felony and without regard to any injury. All right, so bad news for anyone with a second DUI or even arguably even a quote unquote wet reckless, meaning, you know, a wet reckless typically is like, okay, if you were convicted of reckless driving and you had had a beer or you had had some level of alcohol, but there's not enough to show that it was 0.08% blood alcohol content. Maybe there was just some blood alcohol content, but not necessarily that level. So not a classic DUI. But here, arguably, even if it's just any alcohol at all in your system and you drove, then in theory, you would be barred from asylum. All right, the bars continued. Number 5, this one's the long one. This is an alien convicted of a quote-unquote crime that involved conduct amounting to a crime of stalking, child abuse, child neglect, child abandonment, domestic assault, battery, including misdemeanor DV, or any crime based on conduct in which the alien harassed, coerced, intimidated voluntarily, or recklessly used or threatened to use force or violence against the inflicted physical injury, force or violence against, or inflicted physical injury or physical pain, however slight, upon a person who is the spouse, former spouse, person with a child in common, person with whom they are cohabitating or has cohabitated, or similarly situated person. All right? Basically all of the DV stuff. If you have any of this stuff, DV, stalking, child abuse, any of this type of stuff, you will be barred from asylum. Misdemeanor, felony, doesn't matter. You'll be barred from asylum. Number 6 is anyone who has any felony. All right. Number 7, anyone who's convicted of any misdemeanor offense. So number 6 is felony. Number 7 is misdemeanor offense that A, has anything to do with possession or use of false documents. And then there's an exception here, which says that unless it was solely for the purpose of boarding a common carrier, like boarding a plane, with the intention of seeking asylum immediately upon entry. All right, and then B, anyone convicted even of a misdemeanor for receipt of a federal benefit. Kind of nod to the public charge doctrine and things. And C, a misdemeanor related to the possession or trafficking of a controlled substance other than a single offense of 30 grams or less of marijuana for personal use. And then 8, the last one, aliens, foreign nationals who will be barred if there are quote unquote serious reasons to believe that that person engaged in acts of battery or extreme cruelty upon a person covered in the DV regulations. Spouse, former spouse, cohabitant, person with a child in common, all of that. Those are the 8 bars. Okay, so if you are a foreign national and if you have any of those convictions, you will, pursuant to these regulations, you will not be eligible for asylum. Okay, now there are also some definition changes. I'll just go through them quickly. 1, it defines a felony as a crime punishable by more than 1 year of imprisonment, just to clarify that. Good, that's pretty standard language. Number 2, it says that regardless of whether or not the offense makes a person removable or quote unquote deportable, it's basically like whether an activity is the basis for removability or deportability, that's not relevant to determining whether or not it's a bar to asylum. In other words, somebody might have been convicted of something and it's not a crime involving moral turpitude, or it's not a traditional offense that would make someone inadmissible or deportable, but they might still not be eligible for asylum. 3, the bars include this quote unquote inchoate offenses, such as attempt to commit or conspiracy to commit, or the solicitation of the commission of, things that involve like wanting to do those crimes or conspiring to do those crimes. They can trigger the bars as well. 4, regarding convictions that have been modified, vacated, clarified, or otherwise altered. Those modifications do not have any effect on asylum eligibility. And the change says, unless the court had jurisdiction and authority to do so. And if the court did not, do so for rehabilitative purposes or to alleviate possible immigration consequences of the violation. So this is a problem for what we call post-conviction relief. And this is a problem for expungements and other ways to show that a person has rehabilitated themselves. That rehabilitation or the undoing of a criminal record does not undo the fact that they were barred for seeking asylum. 2 more. Number 5, any such modification, like all those modifications that we just discussed, will be presumed to be for the purpose of ameliorating the immigration consequences if the conviction, if that modification was entered subsequent to the initiation of removal proceedings, or if the alien moved for that order more than 1 year after the original conviction or sentence. And so basically they're going to presume that any attempt to change a sentence, to undo a criminal sentence, they're going to presume that it was just for immigration purposes if it happened more than a year after that sentence or after initial removal proceedings commenced, to make it more difficult to get asylum. And 6, the rule will remove the automatic review of a discretionary denial of an asylum application if the alien was subsequently granted withholding of removal. All right, so that's everything that I want to discuss about this particular rule change. My conclusion about this, Otis's conclusion, I'm Otis, here's my conclusion. All right, basically, you know, in the past, there already was a bar for things that were quote unquote particularly serious crimes. All right, so if somebody had a particularly serious, you know, murder, serious violence, felony, they already would not be eligible for asylum. All right, so that bar already existed. So in my opinion, these regulations are completely undermining that previous bar that existed. And really what they're doing is they're making it like a quote unquote any crime bar. I mean, there might be some crimes, you know, if you went joyriding or something, you know, potentially a petty theft offense might not be a bar to asylum now, but many, many, many other crimes now are going to automatically bar a person from seeking asylum. And by doing that, it undermines the point of asylum. Because remember, asylum is here to protect people whose lives are in danger. All right? It's to protect people whose lives are in danger in their home country, which thereby has an effect of making the world safer. It's like, actually, asylum law is a very well thought out, very smart law. And these regulations, in my opinion, completely undermine that whole system. All right? The other thing it does is it turns what should be a civil immigration system into a criminal, adversarial, quote unquote, nasty, my word, process. And it does that because, I mean, look, if somebody has a wet reckless, for example, against them, and now they, you know, have some other allegation against them, right? And now it's going to bar them from asylum. Now, all of a sudden, like, the question isn't anymore, are you afraid to go back to your country? We're not even getting to the real issue of whether somebody needs asylum to stay alive. We're going to dismiss the case. We're going to get rid of the case just with a bar if there's some crime there, which means we got to fight about whether or not this crime is there first. Which the problem with that is somebody that's got a criminal record that's already done their time. They've already served their sentence. They've already, you know, done their community service. They already were in jail, for crying out loud, all right? Somebody that's in that situation, that crime has been completed. They've already repaid their debt to society, all right? And what this is saying is, now, yeah, thanks. You repaid your debts to society. You went to jail. You completed your sentence. You've done your rehabilitation. You're out on parole. You're doing better now. But sorry, you're not eligible for asylum. It's like asylum should be completely different from that whole thing. If somebody's gone through the system and repaid their debts to society, they should not be additionally punished and additionally put in harm's way by forcing this issue again in front of the asylum office. That's my opinion, and that's really where the where, in my opinion, this whole regulation change is not healthy. It's not healthy. It's irrational. In my opinion, it needs to be undone. But there we are. So thank you very much for watching this. Whether you agree with my views on it or not, I do, regardless of that, I do appreciate your watching it, because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And now you know, all right? So these are what the rules have now gone into effect. And so just be aware of what they are. If you have questions about them, or if you're an immigrant and you have questions about how these might affect your case, or if you're interested in seeking asylum and you're cautious about these regulations, please contact our office. I'd love to talk you through it. I'd love to explain how this may or may not affect you in your asylum case. All right. So thank you very much for watching this. I'm Otis Landerholm, Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C, where we fight for your American dream. Have a great rest of your day. If this was helpful, please like the video. Please follow us on YouTube. And, asylum's no joke. If you've got an asylum case, get legal help. Let us work with you to make your case as strong as possible, because you want to maximize your chances of succeeding. All right. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.